I'd like to call this meeting of the July 9th Blue Springs Planning Commission to order. Would you all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone who's here tonight and to those watching us at home. I'd like to briefly go over our agenda for this evening. First, we will have the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from June 25th. Then we will have two public hearings, which we're going to combine on the rezoning and vacation related to Jefferson Corner self-storage. Then we will have another public hearing on a conditional use permit for Asset Automotive. Then we'll be listening to a proposal for a master alternative sign plan at Sunset Plaza, and then a preliminary plat for Calamar Senior Living. And we'll be hopefully done for the evening. To start with, we'll go to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Peel.
I move that the minutes from the June 25th Planning Commission be approved as submitted by staff.
I'll second it.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. And I would like to, since we do have a crowd here this evening, briefly remind everyone of our procedures for a public hearing. First off, I will open the public hearing and call for exhibits from the city attorney. And then we will have comments from staff, and the applicant will make their presentation, and we'd like to limit that to about 15 minutes if possible. And then we will ask for witnesses, both in favor and against. When you come up front, you will have to be sworn in over to the side over here. And please keep those comments to about 5 minutes. And we would ask that we don't have a lot of redundancy in our comments. If someone agrees with something that is being said, you can raise your hand. Please no applause, one way or the other. And after that, after we hear witnesses in favor, we'll ask for witnesses opposed. Then we will bring it up here for general discussion, and then I will close the public hearing. We'll have additional comments and take a vote. That being said, we'll move to our first public hearing, and we're going to hear the two public hearings, the rezoning and the vacation items for Jefferson Corner self-storage together, and I'm going to open those public hearings now and ask for exhibits.
On item number 2 on the agenda, the rezoning RZ 06186434, I offer the following exhibits into the record. 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on June 23, 2018. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section, Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference. On item number 3, the vacation VAC 06186435, I offer the following exhibits into the record. 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on June 23, 2018. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section, Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Thank you. And I believe Mr. Wright is going to give the staff presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman Billups and Commissioners. Before you this evening are 2 requests related to a proposed self-storage facility at the northwest corner of Northeast Jefferson and Northeast Adamsbury Road. The single lot includes 5.39 acres and is currently zoned RC PUD RO, which is regional commercial with a planned unit development and restricted overlay on it. The property, along with the lot to the west, were approved and rezoned from 2-family and multifamily in 2007, rezoned to the regional commercial zoning district to allow the development of a self-storage facility on Lot 1, and then also a 50,000 square foot retail office building on Lot 2, which is the subject property this evening. Since the development, since 2007, the property has remained undeveloped. The 2015 comprehensive plan designated the property as neighborhoods, which generally consist of residential land uses and public facilities. The 2016 area plan designated the property as open space conservation, which was likely due to the lack of development on the site and the location of an existing floodplain that's located on the northern part of this property. In reviewing the rezoning request, staff looked at the surrounding land uses and the requested rezoning. The RC zoning district permits land uses that are common and generally limited to the I-70 frontage roads, including Jefferson and South Outer Road. The neighboring use, which prompted the initial rezoning, is currently used as self-storage. The floodplain and natural landscape buffer creates screening between the single-family homes to the north and the commercial land uses to the south. The existing 2007 PUD and restricted overlay did limit the site to the retail and office development only. However, with current development trends, office and retail uses tend to cluster near other office retail uses in areas with high traffic counts. This can be seen along 7 Highway, 40 Highway, as well as Coronado Drive south of I-70. The subject property is not in close proximity to any other office or retail uses, and traffic along this stretch of Jefferson is generally low. Although there was a development slowdown for several years after the approval in 2007, development has continued along at Adams Dairy Landing and the surrounding properties along Adams Dairy Parkway and Coronado Drive. Development north of I-70, however, has been minimal, and large tracts of potential retail and office developments closer to Adams Dairy Parkway have remained undeveloped. So based on this, retail or office development this far west of Adams Dairy Parkway seems unlikely at this time, especially as the redevelopment and reuse of existing retail sites continue. If approved, the proposed use and building type will need to comply with all requirements of the UDC. Based on the size of the site, setbacks, buffering, landscaping, and parking requirements, it appears this can be met for the subject property. The second request is the vacation of a PUD on Lot 2, which is the east lot that's highlighted on the screen, which currently does require that any development on the site match the approved PUD plan, which limits the land use to retail and/or office. Based on a review of both the rezoning and the vacation application and the associated review criteria for each, staff does recommend approval of both the rezoning and vacation requests, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Wright, I would just like a little bit of history in the interim between when we approved this and when we didn't, or when and it's come before us now. Has there been any activity at all on anybody wanting to develop something here?
Staff has not received any pre-applications or anything on this since 2007. However, I'm not sure if the applicant or if the property owner is in attendance, if either one of them can answer any additional inquiries that they may have had over the last 10 years on this property.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? Would he like to come forward and make his presentation?
Yes.
And you'll need to be sworn in. You don't have to move over there. You just have to face that way.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Need your name and address, please?
Yeah.
My name is Ron Mather, 27151 West 108th Street, Olathe, Kansas, 66061. So I was here, I'm the landowner. I was a landowner when it was originally rezoned, 2007. And since then, haven't had any interest from anybody that was interested in purchasing until these folks with from Salt Lake City came. And we originally thought we might try to do an office warehouse or retail, but the retail climate's not very good right now, and I don't think it's ever going to rebound with the internet sales. And it's really not a very good location because it doesn't have a lot of other high traffic commercial around it, so I always thought that was an appropriate use. And the project these folks, they can tell you more about it, have proposed is self-storage, a little bit, quite a bit higher end product than what's currently adjacent to the west. And I bought the property, I believe, in 2006, and I've owned it ever since. And I'm a developer mainly from Johnson County, Kansas. Have done a few things in Missouri, both residential and commercial. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Then I was going to turn it over to the developers.
Okay, are there any questions for the property owner?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Peel.
Mather, is the second self-storage a different company totally
Yes.
and not tied to yours?
Yes, I think the gentleman I sold the first half of the ground to is Dennis Klein, and he's here. And ironically, I was here back then in support of him getting approved. And so I don't know if he's in support, or I'm guessing he's probably not. Nobody likes competition. But went through the same process in 2018 that we went through in 2007, notified all the neighbors. I think somebody tried to reach out and talk to all the neighbors. They got copies of all the plans and tried to keep them up to date. A few things have changed in the industry. The proposed product is probably going to have a lot more climate controlled, and it has a little bit more user-friendly feel to it than a lot of the older products on the market. But since that's really not my expertise, I'd really rather defer to these guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mather.
Any other questions?
Just a follow-up. I know you kind of answered. Were you actively marketing this in any way to try and get some office and retail space in there?
Yes, it's had a for sale sign on it ever since I purchased it. And I'm also a realtor, so that's our business. We buy and sell and develop properties. So.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
You'll need to be sworn in also.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
And your name and address, please.
My name is Justin Lee. My address is 4966 West, 11,000 North, Highland, Utah. Hi, thanks for this time. I think Mr. Mather did a really good job of summing up what we're trying to do here. It's a great place for storage. The way we pick a spot is we look where the population has grown beyond a certain amount, so that there's some latent demand in the market for storage. There's different formulas that we use, but it's basically a square footage of storage per population per capita, and this location fits our characteristics that we look for pretty well. I have copies of our very preliminary drawings right here, which I can distribute to you, and we can distribute in the crowd as well. I emailed over some copies this morning too. I don't know if they made it into the presentation, but Mr. Mather summed it up really well. We have a nice product. I think it will complement everything that's there without standing out very much. It'll fit in really well. One of the good things about storage is we don't generate a lot of traffic. At the most, it'll be about 15 cars an hour. It's like one every 5 minutes, and that's kind of in the very, very busiest times. The only thing that generates less traffic than storage is a cemetery. So any other use will have more traffic, which, in speaking with the residents, nobody wants a lot of traffic. I live on a very busy street, so I know how inconvenient it is to have traffic, but our storage unit shouldn't generate a lot of traffic. So happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for this part of the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Peel.
Mr. Lee, is this a single-story storage unit? Can you explain a little bit?
Sure.
The architecture?
Yeah, if you'd like to hand those out, we can make that an exhibit.
Okay, just up to you guys.
Yes.
We can comply with whatever the
current UDC requires in terms of finishes. We'll go back and forth probably a few times with the city when it comes to that. What we're showing you is a block and stucco building. We've tried to minimize many doors showing from the street. The building at the front is a 2-story building, climate controlled, and then the one that you can see off to the left is a 1-story climate controlled building, and then there's 2 or 3 more that are non-climate controlled, drive up. Yeah, 3 more.
Excuse me. I've marked this exhibit number 9 under the RZ 06186434.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Peel.
Mr. Lee, do you feel that this new storage area would cannibalize business from the one that's currently there?
I don't think so. A storage unit will turn over, ours at least, turn over about 7% every month. So there's some churn that happens. So while we are filling up, we call it the lease-up period, which is likely to go for a year and a half or maybe 2.5 years, then there will be some head-to-head competition. People will be, wanting them, and they're going to have their choice between the two. When both of them are full, then there won't be much cannibalization because we won't be able to serve everybody who wants storage. Some of them will like the neighboring property more, and it's kind of like where you have. Where's a good spot for a McDonald's? It's also a good spot for a Burger King. It's also a good spot for a Pizza Hut. That's just the place that it works out. So it's kind of nice that the neighboring property has had a few years to fill up and get stable, is what we call it, being stabilized, which is normally 85% full. I don't know their exact occupancy rate. They may speak to that, but I anticipate that they won't notice that we're there very much.
And also, Mr. Lee, I have an additional question. I'm assuming that this is all gated
Yes.
and secured fence.
Yep. With cameras, not a lot of lighting in terms of that anybody would see, but the top-notch security.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I also have a question for staff. On the 185-foot notification letters, were there any that were received back?
No, sir.
Were there any oppositional letters that came back?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
Mr. Chair, and Mr. Lee, is the entrance going to be on Jefferson or Adams Dairy Parkway?
It's on Jefferson. There's already, a cut in the curb and a break in the sidewalk there. So we've done our preliminary design around what's already existing,
Okay.
which keeps the traffic out on Jefferson. It doesn't introduce anything onto Adams Dairy.
I just wonder how many storage units Blue Springs can support.
I couldn't answer that.
Well, you say you have figures and data on population per,
Sure. We can easily support another one right there. I know that. I haven't analyzed the rest of Blue Springs, but as your population changes or grows in different areas, then you'll see other developers potentially coming in where there's favorable zoning, to put in more storage units. Storage is, most of the time we think about storage as just kind of where people keep their junk, or they just kind of fill up and they stay there. But storage becomes a service to a community in that it becomes necessary, or it's a need. It's not really a want. So when something happens in someone's life that they need it, then they use it. When they no longer have the need, then they don't use it anymore. Those needs are life events like births, deaths, moves, or being downsized. Mm-hmm. Generally, in a move, you have 4 residences affected. You have one person who's moving out and into a residence, and then the person who's moving out of that residence into another one. So for every move, generally, 1 storage unit is used. Whether it's in the other town or it's in this town, one of those 2 parties is going to need storage because timing doesn't line up just right. Myself, I've only used storage once, and it was when I was leaving the country for a while and I needed a storage unit because there were some things I just didn't want to get rid of. And at this time, I don't have a storage unit. So the more population you have, then you're going to see that there's a need for storage, and people are going to be not only offering storage but wanting storage.
you don't know, your storage units are not going to be for boats out of season or RVs?
We don't have any RV storage slated for this, and we don't anticipate making any changes to allow that. Not on this particular site. Generally, you need a very large site with very little constraints, and this one, the population is right to do a little bit more dense or a little bit smaller units. So there wouldn't be any open storage at all on this site.
Okay.
Much like the neighboring one, I haven't looked really closely, but it's a very clean property, the one next door.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Craddock?
You mentioned you didn't have very much lighting, but you had security cameras. What are your hours of accessibility?
It would be normal business hours. You know, it's in the morning. It depends on the area, but they're open, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they go till 6 or 7 in the wintertime and a little bit later in the summertime.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Peel?
Mr. Lee, are you going to leave the vegetation such as the trees and all that at the back of that lot?
At the back and on the east, we're going to try to maintain as much of that as is necessary or is needed. We definitely don't want to kill any big trees.
I know there is a creek that runs on the back side, on the north side of those trees, and there's a residence or several residences right beyond that creek. So if you clear those trees off, then there's a possibility of passing more noise and
Sure.
activity through them.
Yeah, we don't have any intention. We love the fact that there's already trees there.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee, and thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Miss. Sorry, I'm Duhon, yes. I'm sorry, I'm not used to being in the center here.
Okay. Mr. Lee, can you give us an idea of the different sizes of the units, and if you're far enough to know that whether or not the price of your units are going to be pretty closely compatible to what's already here?
Yeah, we monitor a market and see what the going rates are, and then we do our pro forma on those rates. So we'll be very closely matching what's in the market there. It won't be much lower because we couldn't afford it, and it won't be much higher because we're not a very good choice then. So it'll be very close to whatever's there. As far as sizes, that is kind of the secret mix to storage, is getting those sizes just right for what the area wants. Some areas, maybe like a little bit more rural areas, they like really big units because they have a lot of large things like boats they want to put in there. We don't know exactly how big these units are. We have a preliminary unit mix. There's those 3 buildings are mostly 10 by 20s. And then inside the larger, the climate control buildings, some of the spaces there will allow a mix of smaller units, 5 by 5s and 5 by 10s. We tend to avoid 5 by 15s because they're really long and narrow, and nobody likes them. We don't either. Around the elevator, there'll be some larger units, some 10 by 30s inside, climate controlled, but close to the doors. So there'll be the full gamut.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, one more question.
One more question, Mr. Peel?
Mr. Lee, is that the little housing here, is that a trash collection area?
Yeah, and its final location is to be determined, but yeah, that's its intention, is a garbage that is just for the facilities use. We won't allow, it'll actually have a roof and be completely fenced off so that the residences or the people who are renting the units can't use it.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Then I guess we will move on. And are there any witnesses who would like to speak? Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Are there any witnesses who would like to speak in favor of this proposition? Either the rezoning or the vacation? Is there, seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Come forward and be sworn in, please.
I do.
Need your name and address, please.
Dennis Klein, live at 2105 Southwest Moreland School Road, Blue Springs. I would like to thank the Planning Commission tonight for allowing me to voice my opinion. I firmly oppose the request to vacate the PUD and the request to remove the overlay from Jefferson Plaza plat. I also oppose the rezoning and the special use permit. I come to you tonight wearing many proverbial hats. My first, as a business owner, I started my first business in this community in '92, second as a homeowner in Blue Springs, third as a voter, fourth as a taxpayer, and finally a concerned citizen of this community. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the importance of and the significant role of the Planning Commission and City Council. I thank you for the dedication and time spent away from family and friends and betterment of our community. I would like to thank you folks for your commitment to the current issues as you charter a plan for long-term success of this city. Enormous sums of time are invested by you and your predecessors to create this roadmap for development and future progress by swearing ordinances into law. These ordinances should not be subjected to these ordinances become the rule book and the backbone for future progress. These ordinances should not be subjected to change or disregarded and thrown out to benefit only one individual. Ordinances are intended to serve the majority. So when an investment group motivated by only profit flies into our town from another state and asks the city planners to undo and throw out all the hard work of the previous administration and customize and tailor a new ordinance for the sole purpose of profit, I think a few basic questions should require convincing commentary as a prerequisite. The first would be, will this proposal have a negative impact on the surrounding property owners? Well, I can testify today it will definitely have a negative impact on my property. And I think several of the homeowners feel the same way. Does the proposed change enhance the city and the surrounding area? Well, the current PUD limits the amount of buildings to one, not to exceed 60,000 square feet. The proposal before you tonight has multiple buildings exceeding 90,000 square feet with 2 stories. The previous administration required me a soft transition from residential to commercial. They wanted to see pitched roofs. They wanted to see short, less predominant buildings. They wanted to see residential shingles on the buildings. And they wanted to see simulated windows on the facade. This proposal tonight is a large in-your-face commercial architecture. Does the proposed change benefit the citizens of this community? Well, I can tell you there's going to be 0 jobs created from this. They're going to put extra space in to manage this property. Extra Space doesn't hire locals. They have their own employees. They'll bring them in. They'll have an apartment on this site, and they'll live there. So they're not going to rent a house. They're not going to buy a house. The revenue generated from this will head its way to Utah. It won't stay in our community like it does now. I was going to leave this one out, but he covered it pretty good. Is the proposal needed in the community? Well, I can testify tonight, there is no pent-up need for storage in Blue Springs. My storage facility is not full, and there's not a facility in Blue Springs that's full. And as soon as the demand catches up with the supply, I'll be the first one to build. As you can see on the map, my 4 interior buildings are designed to stretch out another 100 feet. I haven't built that, and it's all gravel back there because the demand's not there. We haven't filled that facility up yet. Never have reached 100% occupancy, so we haven't built the buildings. He's misleading you when he says that the city is needing this. It's not true. The quality that he's stating that his is better than what we already have would be also misleading. It's the same buildings, same storage units. What he's going to do with the climate control, here's how you would use our facility. You pull up to a keypad, you enter your code, you drive to your unit. In that one, with multi-story, you're going to drive to a loading dock. You could take your stuff off, put it on carts, roll it down a hallway, put it on an elevator, go up to your floor, roll down to your unit, and use it. That's how you would use that. So I don't think it's any better than what we provide. Every facility in the city that I know of is climate controlled. Some of them aren't temperature controlled, which I do have that at that location, and it's not full either. The need for temperature controlled is very limited. I've been in this industry since 1995, and I can only think of a few instances when you would need to be in temperature controlled. One of them, I can tell you, is a tenant at that location. He's a piano contractor. He moves pianos daily, so when he stores them, he doesn't want the strings to expand or contract. So temperature control does him really good. Another use is pharmaceutical reps. The government controls that, and they have to store those in a temperature-controlled storage. That's about it. I can't think of, we've had a couple of paint contractors over the years, but other than that, there's really no need for temperature control. The things in your house now, the furniture comes from a barge, a steel metal container, and it lands, your furniture, your electronics, your TVs all land in a really hot warehouse. There are some people that just have a misconception about storage and think they need that. They don't. And we can offer ours, and we usually tell them they don't need it, so they rent the non-temperature controlled space for less money. So the product that he's talking about that doesn't exist or there's not enough of it is misleading. It's just not a true statement. And finally, you'd have to ask what the long-term impact will be on this community. This proposal removes a large parcel of limited inventory of prime commercial real estate on a very active corridor. The city stands to lose large sums of sales tax revenue. This proposal will forever eliminate the opportunity for placement of a business that collects sales tax dollars. I know this was pivotal. When I presented this to the city council, they weren't even going to consider the storage project unless there was something in it for the city. And what they got was, on that side, they wanted it to generate sales tax because they were aware that we weren't going to collect sales tax dollars. They weren't interested in rezoning, and there was a lot of work that went into this. I met with staff, I met with planning and city council multiple times. I've got a notebook that thick of meetings that went on during that time. So this was no slam dunk when this was presented to them. They were very concerned about what was going to happen there. The homeowners were very involved. And they all wanted to know what was in it for them. Well, by allowing more storage there, you're totally eliminating the opportunity for sales tax dollars to ever be collected in that area. I did a little research today on conditional use permits and vacating PUDs. Section 403.060, number 6, compatibility with character of the area in terms of building scale and building form. Well, his scale of the building does not conform to the building scale that I have, and that was, again, a big deal to the city planners. They wanted to see pitched roofs. They wanted to see the soft curves. This guy's presenting a really tall building, squared corners, no roof line showing. So I think when you review it on that criteria, it wouldn't be compatible. Number 9, the long-range plans applicable to the site and the surrounding areas are not negatively impacted. Well, I can promise you my property is going to be severely impacted. And finally, the vacations. If you vacate a PUD, the review criteria number 5 says, does not deter from any existing or future development on adjacent properties. Well, I will never develop the rest of that. I mean, there won't be, if there's not a demand now, there definitely won't be a demand after he puts in. And he's He's being vague, too. He hasn't mentioned how many storage units he's putting in. That's very typical of most storage developers. They don't want this the council to know that they're putting in 600 or 700 units. It's staggering. Well, I can guarantee you with that amount of square footage, it's going to be probably more than that. There's not a development in Blue Springs as large as what he's talking about. Number 7, on the same section, 403-090, the application meets the public interest and is not otherwise for the sole benefit of one property owner or project. Well, if you review vacations and read that criteria, then you shouldn't be able to vacate that PUD.
I need you to wrap it up.
Okay.
We've kind of gone over, I've let you go over your time limit here, so.
Okay. If you deny this tonight, you're not losing an opportunity for a new business. He will find another piece of ground. But he's not telling you another thing, too. There's 2 other developers, 2 large developers. One of them that I know of has already got ground under contract by the Harley-Davidson dealership on Jefferson. So there's 2 other fairly large self-storage projects that are coming to Blue Springs now. And to tell you how much homework they did, none of these guys knew about each other. When I started, the first page was usually a feasibility study on your business plan. Now these guys, the feasibility study's in the very back or not found at all because they're not doing any homework. They don't care. They just want to build it. This is an investment company. He's not going to own it a year from now. Extra Space will own it. Thank you again, Dennis Klein, and just wish you'd respect the decision and all the hard work the City Council and the Planning Commission put in this initially. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition to this? Yes. Can you come forward and be sworn in, please?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Don Thorne, 908 Northeast Lakeside Court, Blue Springs, Missouri.
Can you repeat your last name, please? Your last name?
Thorne, T-H-O-R-N-E.
Thank you.
I just recently found out about this, and I'm going to divulge right now. I rent a space from Dennis. I've known him very little as far as to be any interaction with him other than when I initially rented from him, and I've been there several years now, just to keep a boat there. He is, of all the people I've run across in my lifetime, there's very few that I would really stand up for, and I hate to say that, but there's a lot of truth in that. Dennis is one of the best business people I've ever run across, who cares about every one of those people that rents something from him. He has helped people when they couldn't afford to get out of there. He's helped them. He's rented trucks for them that he has there on the site, or had gone and gotten them before he had them, to help someone who didn't have the money to get because of a family situation that they've done. When I first went there, he didn't have a space that I needed. He said, I've got a big one over here. He said, if you want to use it till I get yours built, he said, just do that. He said, same price. He said, we'll deal with it. So I'm here in that respect just for his sake, as far as to let you know what kind of a person he is. Through that, I found out about this. I went through these neighborhoods behind him, and as much as I could through a daytime situation where you don't always catch a lot of people at home. I've got a couple of pieces of paper here that have around 40 signatures on them. Every signature that was asked for was given. Not one person turned down any one of those opportunities to sign that piece of paper, and said, and some of them had some expletives about no, that they didn't want it. So I think it's almost, to me, it's obvious. It's can be. I don't want to take up a lot of time. There's other people here that probably have things to say about that live in those neighborhoods. But and I think the fact that once they've made a plan for this city, this is a great city if you take care of it. And up till now, things have done pretty well, but I'd like to see that continue, and I think all these people behind me, some of these that are here, just in that support, would like to see that too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Yes, you come forward and be sworn in, please.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi.
Hi.
John Ray, 1700 Northwest Walnut Circle in Blue Springs. I ask for your forgiveness. I am a contractor. I came straight from a job site because I felt passionate enough to be here.
I promise we don't hold that against you.
I have a couple of major concerns with this project coming in. First of all, I own a home in Country Club Gardens. So this is going to be in my backyard. And I can speak for several of my neighbors. Some of them I know really well, real well. Some of them I don't know so well. But nobody that I've spoken to wants this in the backyard. As well, you guys know very well, we've got a hotel sitting vacant for years down at the corner of 7 Highway. We've got all this great development going on the other side of Adams Dairy. What they're talking about doing here will bring absolutely no revenue to Blue Springs. It'll bring no jobs. It'll bring no taxes. We don't need it here. We've got the storage that's there already. You drive down 70 Highway, there's storage buildings all the way up and down. I just found out that there's going to be another one. Enough's enough. We don't need it. So please stay with where we are now. We don't need this in our backyard. We don't want it in our backyard. So I ask you to please uphold what your current decisions are and not change them to let this out-of-state company come in and build something that is not going to benefit this city whatsoever or the people of this city. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
I have
Yes,
one.
Ms.
Yes.
Have you given thought or have you talked to anyone about how they would feel differently if it were retail as opposed to storage?
Yes. Like I said, and this is, you got to excuse me, I've been a little hoarse, but everybody loves what's going on over here on Adams Dairy. Everybody's upset about what's going on down here. I mean, we've got so many areas that can bring in revenue to this city, can bring in new restaurants, can bring in new retail, and I know that the internet's kind of killing retail, but I do believe that people still want to shop retail. My mama won't buy anything off the internet. I think there's a lot of them out there like that. And I'm a taxpayer in Blue Springs. I want our schools to be great. I want our streets to be good. I want our infrastructure to be good. And I don't want anything here. I pay taxes. My property taxes go up every year. And, why bring in a business that's not going to benefit the city or the people that are in the city? I can't speak to the occupancy rate of this storage or that storage, but if there's another new storage coming in, we certainly don't need any more storage, in my opinion. I mean, they're everywhere. So the people that I speak to, yeah, we love development. We love things that, I love going to new restaurants. I love going to, a new shopping potential center that could be built. I would love for an office building to be built that brings in jobs into Blue Springs. So, yeah, I can I give you their exact opinion? No. But can I tell you conversations that are had? Absolutely. We don't need anything here, once again, not to be redundant, that's not going to benefit the city or the people of this city.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Yes, you come forward and be sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Good evening. My name's Mike Fisher. I live at 3200 Southwest 11th Street Circle. Actually, next door to Ken Billups, my neighbor.
We won't hold that against you either.
Well, okay. But I'm here on behalf of what I'm seeing and hearing taking place. The rezoning is part of the issue. The jobs, the taxes, chiming in basically with the last speaker. Pretty much everything he had mentioned is pretty much what I was going to touch base on. I'm a small business owner here in Blue Springs. I moved here in 99, built a house in Kensington Place. Purchased a building here in Blue Springs on Walnut. We have a small business we run out of there where we do commercial surface coatings. And I don't employ a lot of people, but we have a few employees there that we're paying taxes. And hopefully our company grows and want to put more people on to add to the company, which will bring in more revenue for the city. I'm understanding this project here will not bring much employment to the city and will not be paying, if any, taxes for the city. I don't see why this property can't be sold. There's probably a reason. Nobody knows at this point. Is the price too high on the property? Is he outpriced himself? Is there a possibility that you can bring in other businesses here that's going to pay taxes and bring in jobs for the city, which Blue Springs really needs? We need more taxes for the schools. We don't need our money taken from our city to another state. That's what I see what's happening here. I do know Dennis. I have never stored with him. I do understand he runs a very clean and respectable business from people I've talked to. So I hate to see another company come in and take down a business that has been successful, cut his costs, be very competitive, and one of these guys might have to go. Is it going to be the local guy, or is it going to be the guy from out of state that's not paying taxes? So, with all that, I'll close my case.
Are there any questions for this witness?
I have a question.
Sure. Ms. Fairbanks.
I'm curious why you think the new location will not pay any taxes.
Well, the revenue off of that, basically, they will be taking into their possession. I'm sure the profits will be sent out of state to the company, the mother or the parent company,
Yeah, but
whoever.
they're still paying property taxes.
They'll be
that
paying.
support the schools.
Okay.
They still pay property taxes that support the
Will they be paying the same rate that a shopping center would pay, or a shopping center type retail store? Is that something that they have a different rate class they're in?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
But I know they'll pay property taxes.
Sure. We all do.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will bring it back up here for discussion.
Mr. Chair, is it possible that we can call back a witness to ask him a question?
Sure.
I'd like to ask Dennis a question.
Sure, that is my lapse there. I forgot to ask if there were questions for that witness.
Dennis, do
And you are
mind
still under oath.
elaborating a little more on how it would affect your property negatively?
Well, if I can't fill up the units that I currently have, I don't know how 700 or I think it's probably more than that. He hasn't told anybody about how many units he's putting in, but I've got around 300 units, so he's probably going to double or more than double what I have. I don't know how I could ever reach occupancy that's what was planned for that site if that goes on. I don't know that I would have, well, I know the answer to this. I know I wouldn't have built it if I'd known that was going to happen. And I thought Ron was a friend of mine at the time. This project actually came about because of me. I'm the one who met with the church, put all this together. Ron Mather had cash, so he's the one that actually took down the property, and I paid him for my half. That's how it all happened. And he's being a little misleading to you when he says the property's been on the market since he's owned it. He planned to build a flex space there when he bought the property, and because the economy was slow then, he didn't build. But what he's wanting for the property is almost triple what he's got in it. So it could be a price that's the reason that the property hasn't sold. It's not so much a need. But yeah, it's definitely, it will most likely put one of us out of business.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what your current occupancy rate is on your units?
Yeah, this time of the year is the peak for self-storage, and we're in the upper 80 percentile right now.
Okay.
And normally that will shrink, you know, after school starts, it'll shrink 10, 15%, so we're back down to 75 to 80.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's with our current square footage. And if I could build on and build that site out to what it was intended to do, then I would love to do that, but I can't get past the threshold of 80, 85% on the space that I've got now. I mean, there's times when this time of the year you'll see a storage facility, they will peak and you'll get in the 80s, upper 80 percentile, but it goes right back down when school starts back up.
So are you saying that it's a cyclical business, and the reason that you are not adding units is because you cannot sustain a profit?
Well, I wouldn't say a profit. It's profitable, but it won't reach occupancy to justify building the additional space that it was designed for.
Okay, so your area has capacity, but right now, there's not sufficient demand to warrant you building more.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So you're saying that there's also 2 or 3 other organizations that are looking to build storage in Blue Springs right now?
There's two large companies, and I'm not sure if the other one has purchased the ground, but the first one has. And it's at the next door to Harley Davidson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would one of the applicants like to make a rebuttal to anything that's been said here? I do want to give you that opportunity.
Sure. So, once again, Ron Mather, and I appreciate you folks spending all your time to hear this. And I can be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to come here and it was going to be such a controversial thing. Dennis is right. He purchased part of the property from me, and during the process, when he got his project approved, I was the owner. So I was the applicant. I was the owner of record. And so a lot of the arguments he makes today are a 180 from the arguments he was making back in 2007. And it's true that self-storage doesn't generate a lot of jobs. I don't believe they plan on having an apartment here, so somebody will live most likely in Blue Springs and manage this, probably 2 managers. So in that respect, there will be somebody living in the community. No Mini Warehouse generates a significant amount of sales tax dollars. His facility is no different than this one. And, but they do pay property tax, and property tax is based upon the value of the property. And self-storage usually appraises fairly high and generates a lot of tax revenue. They don't generate hardly any load on public services. So this mini warehouse won't generate any students that need schools. They typically don't have a lot of fires. There's not a lot of altercations where the police are called. So it's a very low level of services required to sustain a self-storage. And this one's no different than any of them. They're all about the same. You know, he made a point about why change the rules now. Well, the city changed the rules back in 2007 to approve his project. And all we're asking for today is the same treatment that he received back in 2007. Nothing more, nothing less. And in 2007, all the same neighbors were notified, and none of them had a problem. While the gentlemen were talking, the two that are residents, and I understand that they have an opinion, but they both live about 2 miles away from the site. They're not right in the backyard. So nobody who's voiced an opposition lives right next door. And the fact of the matter is, the highest and best use for this property, the use that'll generate the most revenue for the city and the county, is self-storage. It's not a very good retail site. I don't think any of the neighbors would like a car lot there. That would generate a lot of sales tax, but I don't think anybody'd like all the traffic. I don't think anybody'd like a convenience store. I mean, all the things that are compatible with the zoning, they all have a lot higher use than what we're proposing today. As far as the occupancy, I can tell you that historically, the self-storage industry, and through the latest downturn, this was once again confirmed, the self-storage industry has the absolute lowest rate of foreclosure of any real estate product. That's residential, single-family, multifamily, retail, industrial, office warehouse, across all segments of real estate. It's got the absolute lowest rate of default. So the probability of Mr. Klein going out of business is very, very low. And I can't, for the life of me, it used to be 50 years ago, I'm old. 50 years ago, they'd say that self-storage was a temporary use, and as soon as they could justify something better for the property, it would get torn down. You seldom see a self-storage torn down and something else built in its place, because the highest and best use, once it's established, is that self-storage. So, and as far as some of the mixed questions and the operation of the facility, I'd like to defer to Mr. Lee, if I could.
Yeah, well, we need to keep it brief, but yes.
Okay, we'll take 15 minutes. Thank you.
I can agree with Ron in that we won't have a full-time resident. We don't bring anybody in from out of state. Everybody will be local. If we partner with Extra Space on this one, they already have a local team because they have 5 other properties in the greater Kansas City area. So there will be a regional manager from Jackson or Johnson County, and then all the other employees will be local, whoever applies for the jobs that are listed. As far as Mr. Klein's concerns about going out of business, I'm under oath to tell you the truth. If Mr. Klein's property was ugly, if it was dirty, if it was really old, like 50 years old, he would have cause to be worried. He has a very nice facility that's very well run. He has very diligent employees who, every time I have visited our site, they come out and ask me what's going on, which means they have they create a very high level of perception of security. So he's doing a very good job, and if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't be worried about it. That is my honest opinion. The market can bear more storage in this location. All of the other storage units, okay, here's the most important thing to know about storage. Storage is a very localized business. No one wants to drive 5 miles to their storage unit. Not if there's one that's a half mile away. So if you took all of Blue Springs' boundaries and you drew some circles around the population centers, that's where people are going to want to have their storage. They're going to want their storage unit to be close so it's accessible. The Harley-Davidson dealership, according to the map that I just looked, is 2.5 miles away from site to site, which puts us right on the edge of each other's 2 to 3 mile radius of the people who are likely to rent in those storage units, which tells me the place at Harley-Davidson won't affect Mr. Klein, and it won't affect us either. So if we're both leasing up at the same time, it may take a few months longer, and Mr. Klein may run 80% occupancy at peak, or through the rest of the year, but just not 85 for those year and a half, and then it goes back up to 85. As far as never being 100% full, no storage unit in the country runs 100% full. It's very, very rare, and it's extremely temporary when it does happen. 85% full is considered full. So, for example, the very large operators in the storage business, they would come to Mr. Klein's business, they would say, "You're running 88% or 85% in the summer? Well, that's great. We don't expect anything better," and they would pay him top dollar if he ever wanted to sell. So as far as him being in danger, he's the big dog. He has no problems at all in terms of what he's doing. And really his success in the market is what justifies another storage unit. I didn't know his occupancy rate because his people are really good. They don't give it up over the phone. And now that he has told us, I mean, it just confirms the fact that that is an excellent place for more storage. Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Crado?
How many facilities do you own in other cities?
At this time, we have 9 projects underway. We have different partners who have more than this, but us, we have 9 right now. 5 of them are in the Kansas City area.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Yes, Mrs. Fairbanks.
How many units will you have in these structures?
Mr. Klein is absolutely right in that we're going to have more than him, but it's because in climate control, you're forced into smaller units. So what we're going to have is more units, but they're going to be smaller and the rent's going to be lower, but you get less space. So I anticipate it's going to be between 500 and 700.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I can't give you the exact count is because we have not done the full final design, and it's like making a puzzle. Moving things around all the time in these 5x5 grids to get the best use of the space.
Okay. And would you be receptive to any other softening of your building impact? So it's not square and massive?
You bet. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anyone who has not spoken who would like to speak? Seeing none, I bring it back up here for comments. I think we've had all of our comments. I would like to say that I was around 10 years ago when this was first done. I do remember what Mr. Klein is saying about we were adamant that we did not, that this was a trade-off in that we allowed the storage in exchange for getting something else. And now I feel like we're losing our advantage that we got at that point. And this is not the first time that a developer has come to us and offered us one thing in exchange for the part that he wants, and then we don't get the part we want. I don't know exactly what site is being talked about around Harley-Davidson, but I know there's a lot of land over there that was also slated to be retail office in exchange for a bunch of duplexes and townhouses that has never been built, and I don't want to see that opportunity lost again by setting any kind of a precedent here by changing our restrictions on what's been done. The deal that was made 10 years ago was well thought out, and there was a reason for all of it, and I don't want to see us start to undo things that were done in the past. So that's just my opinion on this whole thing.
Mr. Chair, were there very many letters in opposition against this project?
I don't remember there being letters of opposition. I do remember city staff was very much in favor of promoting that as a visible site along 7 Highway, and we wanted something that could use that visibility to attract people into town. And self-storage was not that option.
Well, because didn't we have another self-storage application within the past year and a half at 40 Highway and Adamsbury Parkway that was denied?
That we denied because that was not what, in our opinion, the best use for that property, because it was a very visible site.
Right.
And we thought it would be better suited for a retail office situation.
Right.
Yes.
And to me, when you're exiting I-70 westbound, you're going to be looking right at this lot.
Yeah.
So I could envision a Rite Aid drugstore or something like that there. And it would be, that size would be compatible with that. Something freestanding.
Well, and something like that would fit the neighborhood zoning that's in the new neighborhood plan as well. It would be a draw for the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, that's my opinion. Does anybody else would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Peel.
I'd like to thank Mr. Klein, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Ray for their testimony here. The number one is I would hate to see 2 storage units beside each other. I don't know that so that's part of the negative part of this. But the positive part of this, if that site, it's not a very pretty site, number one. I don't see that there would be a good fit for any kind of retail in that corner. They'd almost have to develop the east side of that property as well into something. As far as visibility from I-70, since this is a 2-story unit, the people passing by might be able to see the top of it. But I don't think you can see visibly anything from I-70 unless you're really looking for something. So, I've got a negative and I got a positive, so it doesn't make this very easy to come up with a proposition. But my thoughts is, it would be a good fit for this particular piece of property. Again, I can't see 2 storage units side by side.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I will close the public hearing, and we will ask for, first we will look at the rezoning, and I would entertain a motion or comments on the rezoning. Anyone? I can't do it.
Nobody wants to make a motion. To make a motion.
You can make a motion to deny it. It doesn't have to be a motion in favor. But we do need a motion from someone, please.
I'll make a motion to deny that application.
I have a motion from Ms. Fairbanks to deny the rezoning. Do I have a second?
I'll make a motion to deny.
And we have a second. And we'll need a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Planning Commissioner Cradoff?
This is in terms of denying it, correct?
Denying,
This is
yes.
denying the rezoning. So a yes vote would be to deny.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Fairbanks?
Aye.
Commissioner Peel?
Nay.
Commissioner Sanderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Duhan?
Aye.
Commissioner Haney?
Aye.
Commissioner Veal?
Aye.
Vice Chair Billups?
Aye.
The rezoning has been denied.
The rezoning has been suggested to be denied, and that will go before the City Council on July 16th at 6 p.m., and they're the ones who will have the final decision. Then we would move on to the vacation, and I would also entertain a motion on to the vacation.
I'd like to
Of the
motion to
PUD.
deny.
And we have a motion to deny. I'm sorry, I'm still working on names here. From Commissioner Veal, and
I'll second it.
a second from Ms. Fairbanks. And a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is a motion to deny.
Planning Commissioner Haney?
Aye.
Commissioner Duhan?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Peel?
Nay.
Commissioner Fairbanks?
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff?
Aye.
Commissioner Veal?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Billups?
Aye. That motion has also been moved to deny the vacation of the current PUD. And that will also go before the City Council on July 16th at 6 p.m. We now move to another public hearing for a conditional use permit for Asset Automotive. And I believe Mr. Jury is going to give us that presentation. First, let me open the public hearing and ask for exhibits.
I offer the following exhibits into the record. 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on June 23, 2018. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section, Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Thank you. Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Before you today is a request to approve a conditional use permit for a vehicle repair limited and general business. The applicant, Asset Automotive, is requesting this, as well as the property owner, Hobbick Investments, and they both are here today to answer any questions. But this property is located on the south side of westbound 40, and it's about 650 feet west of Burris Road. It's about 3/4 of an acre and covers 2 lots. One has the building and one has the gravel parking lot that is currently there. It's zoned light industrial. And we've never had a business license in the time that we've had our latest software that I know of. So, according to our most easily researched records, we don't have any business license at this. It's just been businesses that have illegally, as you can see in this aerial, illegally used the site, and we've had to issue a request for them to stop business on this property. But now, Asset Automotive is coming before us to use this site as a satellite business, as you will, for their current operation on 40 Highway. And they're going to use this for the repair of vehicles from their sales office. They'll send them over to this property, repair them on site, and then send them back. So there will be a minimum amount of time that vehicles are on this property. I will also mention that the property owner, Hobbick Investments, is also looking to eventually use this property, possibly down the road, for their own business as well that is affiliated with CarStar. So that's the reason behind the Vehicle Repair Limited, which is just your general vehicle repair business, and then Vehicle Repair General, which is more of your body shop business model.
With that, I'll go into a little bit of the conditional use behind this. And so conditional use is required to allow this on light industrial zoning, so that's why this is being heard today. With that, it's just a change in use, and so the site has to come into conformance. The building, not as much, but the site, which means the parking, lighting, landscaping, and et cetera. So those are the items that I'll go over today. As well, it does need to comply with the conditional uses requirements, and so some of those requirements I'll go over briefly. The parking lot should have a dust-free surface, and the applicant is proposing to have 3 inches of asphalt on top of the existing subgrade aggregate base of gravel, and that should suffice for that requirement. We don't require a traffic study in this situation to determine whether or not traffic improvements are needed. MoDOT and Public Works standards don't require that, since this is such a minimum improvement or minimum change. There are some requirements for buffering and site and building orientation, but those are usually based on whether or not residential property is adjacent, and this being between 2 eastbound and westbound 40 highway and light industrial on the east and west sides of the property. There is no residential property adjacent to the site. I will mention beyond that, the applicant is proposing to pave the lot and also add a little bit of landscaping on the south side of the building and keep the existing landscaping that's on the north side of the building and the parking lot. So staff did look at their landscape plan and all of the existing trees, and they will comply with the landscaping standards with existing and new trees combined. The parking spaces, they'll provide enough striped parking to accommodate the parking requirements for 2 spaces per bay plus 1 per employee on their max shift. 7 spaces are provided and 6 are required. And they aren't proposing any additional lighting at this time for outdoor lighting, so the existing lighting should suffice. I think there are 1 or 2 fixtures on the building itself facing the parking lot. Beyond that, public improvements aren't required, and the paving of this property won't significantly impact the stormwater drainage network, since it is relatively compacted surface already, and the paving of this is not significant enough to require any stormwater improvements. So with that, staff will recommend approval of the conditional use permit with 4 conditions. And I will mention the 4th condition is that prior to business license approval, the proposed landscaping and the required paving must be installed or financially guaranteed. And if it is financially guaranteed, it must be installed by October 31st, 2018. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? And just to reiterate, they're not proposing any improvements to the building itself, just the site. Is that correct?
Not currently. I can let the property owner answer any questions beyond that, but not with this application.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation? You will need to come forward and be sworn in.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
We need your name and address, please.
Timothy Banner, 7602 Donnell Lane, Grand Valley, Missouri.
Thank you.
And I'm with Asset Auto. We operate a retail lot to the west of this and have for 10, 15 years. This is just private, no retail customers there. We do our work on our in-stock vehicles and then send them back to the lot. So two employees there that are mechanics, and that's it. Pretty simple. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this conditional use permit? Is there anyone who would like to speak against it? Come forward and be sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes. My name is Gail Mullins. I live at 3765 Southwest Kempston Circle in Blue Springs. And the previous picture kind of depicts where I am. I'm directly across 40 Highway from those, and we are not within the 185 feet to be notified of any zoning or reuse changing or anything like that. And I'm concerned about the noise level that's going to go on. There's been multiple businesses there that have had stacks of used tires and grinding equipment all night and other things. So this was I saw the public notice on the north side of 40 Highway, and I live on the south side of 40 Highway, so it concerned me quite a bit. I do have some pictures and things if you want to see them.
If you'd like to pass them around, we can enter them into evidence, yes.
That shows how many feet my front of the yard is. This is like a picture of a building. This is my backyard facing them. This is a picture of the gravel parking lots. This picture here depicts what they can see, why the noise bounces off these houses and what it's on. I'm just worried that it's going to diminish my property value, and I've worked very hard on keeping things very nice. Also, that one map shows you that on the one side of Burris at the end of part of the 40 Highway, there's a great big car dealership there and an auto body place. And then on the other side of the block off of the other street, there's there's two different car dealerships and a body shop. So I'm thinking I'm feeling inundated with parking, car sales and automotive repair, and that's just the ones in the immediate block. So
I've marked the maps that you brought forward as Exhibit 9, both of them, the same exhibit number, and the photos as Exhibit 10.
Okay.
All of the photos together in one exhibit.
That's pretty much all I had, and I know I briefly talked to a few of my neighbors, and nobody really wants that to go behind their houses because of the noise level and the dust, and it's just a gravel road that goes east and west in between those buildings.
And are there any questions for the witness? Are you, and I don't know exactly how to phrase this, given any thought to the fact that by paving this and actually having a licensed business in this location, it might actually improve things?
No.
Okay. Just thought I'd offer that up.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Peel.
I'd like to reserve a little bit of time to review this material, and then I may ask to recall.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll close the public hearing immediately. Is there anyone else? Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this issue? Yes, if you'd like to come forward, please. You'd be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. My name is Mike Hobbick. I live at 6420 Larson Court, Kansas City, Missouri. I recently purchased this property in June 1st of this year. We were actually supposed to purchase the property a couple months before that, but we, as you saw in the photos, there was a business there that was illegally there, and it took a couple months to get them moved out and get the area cleaned up. So our plan with this is to clean that area up, to not only pave the parking lot, but also pave the complete driveway passing through that area, which will eliminate all the dust in the area, and to bring in a business that will be licensed and act properly and do all their business inside the building and not outside in the lot at all hours of the night. You know, they'll function just regular business hours from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock during the day.
So that would address the issue that the previous person had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it already has been addressed.
It already has been.
Yeah, it's already been cleaned up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments for this witness? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Give you just a couple of minutes to review the exhibits that have been added.
I've got a quick question.
Yes.
For staff. How long is the conditional use permit applicable for before they have to reapply?
Conditional uses run with the land, so any new business, if the business that's applying currently goes out of business or moves locations, a new business could come in under the same conditional use. As long as they're not expanding the conditional use into the next building over or something, it just applies to the land that's under approval today, though.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Peel?
I'd like to recall Ms. Mullins.
Sure. And you are still under oath?
Ms. Mullins, would you show me, if possible, where your property is that you're discussing, that you have? I see where where it is for the proposed.
Okay, you see where, across the street where that circle is? The roundabout, you know, the circle.
To the south.
No, the other one.
Yeah. I think it's this one.
Okay, hang on just a second. Nathan, may you be able to highlight that?
Okay. Is it the left or the right cul-de-sac?
Next one right there.
I think on the map it said it was 540 feet.
Is that the right?
I think it was like 200 feet.
No, I'm 540 feet from the front of my house to the address of where the business is. It's 400 feet to where my backyard is.
Okay, and I'm not familiar with that. The property that's in that area, is there any grade of any kind?
Yeah, that one goes up a little bit, and then 40 Highway sets down farther. So we're the highest point of our subdivision.
Okay.
And then it starts to go down on both sides. So those businesses that are very loud, they kind of echo bounce off your house, like the previous one that was there.
Right.
It's just noise. I mean, it's not like it's quiet. You know, we do have traffic noise from 40 Highway.
Sure.
There's nothing we can do about that. But, you know, like the other businesses on the end of that block, you don't ever hear anything. They have very little traffic. You know, it's a no deal. But the ones that are down on this end they're noisy. They have motors running at all times. It's just, once they get started in your head, and it just keeps going and going and going, it's just, you can't escape.
Understood. So the two businesses that are just north of 40 Highway, that probably add to that noise level?
The ones.
The two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Right.
one of them's closed, and the buildings all look terrible. All the ones on that end, or they're not like freshly painted, or they look like little tin metal sheds you've had out in your backyard for 15 years.
Sure.
Just
Understood. All right. Thank you very
eyesores.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Any comments up here?
It would seem reasonable to me that if they are going to asphalt the gravel base, that's going to reduce the dust, and that if they're going to operate between 8 and 5 regular business hours inside the building, that should reduce the noise.
I may offer a comment. Back in my days when I was working with the Economic Development Council, they really wanted this area to become a gateway into Blue Springs, but this is not really in the purveyance of what we're looking at right now. So we can't really take that into account. But these buildings are older, and yeah, I'd certainly like to see them fixed up a little bit, but that's, I think, out of our jurisdiction right now.
I
So
think they're probably Butler buildings that were
they
built
were
several years ago.
many years ago. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will bring it up here for discussion and motions on the conditional use permit.
Mr. Chair, if there's no discussion, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Peel?
Well, I will yield to Mr. Haney if he would like to make a motion.
So, make a motion to approve CUP-6-18-6438 Asset Automotive with the 4 conditions.
Second.
Second from Mr. Peel. Roll call vote, please.
Planning Commissioner Veal,
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairbanks,
Aye.
Commissioner Peel,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Duhan,
Aye.
Commissioner Haney,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Billups.
Aye. That motion passes, and the conditional use has been granted. That one does not need to go to the city council. We now move to item number
With the 4
5.
conditions. With the 4 conditions.
With the 4 conditions, yes.
Okay.
We now move to item number 5, the master alternative sign plan for Sunset Plaza. And
Thank you, Planning Commissioners.
Mr. Jury, you're back on board again?
Yes, I am. Before you is a request for the approval of the master sign plan for Sunset Plaza, which you recently heard the approval for the PD final plan, or the PUD final plan, excuse me. And now they're going through the request for the signage that is required, since there's more than 3 tenant spaces on this particular development. So the property is located about 500 feet west of 7 Highway, between 40 Highway and Sunset Avenue. 40 Highway on the north, Sunset Avenue on the south there. There's 3 existing lots, and they're altogether about 4.5 acres. It's zone GB PUD, which is General Business Planned Unit Development. And there's existing buildings, but they are proposing to have 2 strip centers built out of the existing by demolishing a portion of the existing strip mall, and then the existing building on the pad site will remain, and there will be a future building on the last remaining lot. Altogether, this proposal is, there are quite a few signs on that, but there are quite a few tenant spaces. There's 21 wall signs on the north wall of the strip mall. There's 21 on the south wall. And then each of the pad sites will have several wall signs on several facades. The freestanding sign I'll get into a little bit deeper, but there's an existing monument sign and an existing pole sign located on this site. I will mention that pole signs are only allowed in the I-70 corridor, and as such, this is a legal non-conforming sign. But since this is going through and required to go through a master sign plan, part of that is trying to bring the site up to conformance of the sign code as close as we can, and staff is recommending the removal of that pole sign eventually when Ponchos, if or when they vacate the premises. So whenever the existing tenant that utilizes that sign vacates the premise, then that pole sign should come down with them before a new tenant goes in. Beyond that, there is one wall sign on the pad site that's vacant currently or undeveloped currently, and that does face the south of the property. And as such, it doesn't face any street. But since this is an alternative master sign plan, they can request to do that. The other minor infraction would be the menu board. They are proposing a 45 square foot menu board where the max for menu board for restaurants is 40 square feet. And as this also being a master sign plan, they can request that, and staff doesn't see either instance being a significant issue. Altogether, they are underneath the total sign area allowed for all three properties. They are touching two streets, so they are allowed a lot more signage than most properties since they have a lot more street frontage. There is not a current design scheme in the signage proposed, and the illumination, there is no set standard on that either. But with that, staff will recommend approval of the master sign plan with the 3 conditions, with one of those being that condition I mentioned before about the pole sign. I'll stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Peel.
Mr. Jury, would you show me on the picture here where the current monument sign is?
Yeah. So the current monument sign is located right there where that triangle bump out is currently.
Okay. And the pole sign?
And the pole sign, I believe, is currently right here.
Is Ponchos supposed to vacate with the new development going on in that area?
As far as I know, no. I've not been told that they are vacating or not.
Okay. And they're proposing another monument sign, is that correct?
Menu boards for the restaurant, but no additional monument sign with this proposal. They will utilize the existing one because it has several tenant panels on that they'll use, but no new monument sign.
Okay, so once Poncho then vacates that property, the pole sign will disappear?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, and do you know when that Ponchos will vacate?
We don't have a timeline. I don't know if Ponchos even has a timeline on that, so we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, they could be here for hopefully is a successful business for many, many years.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Jury. Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Is the applicant present? We don't need to be sworn in. We're not in a public hearing anymore.
Okay. My name is Brianna.
We do need your name and address, please.
Brianna McKenzie. I'm with Davidson Architecture and Engineering. We are located at 4301 Indian Creek Parkway, Overland Park, Kansas. So I think Nathan did a great job at explaining the scope of the project. I don't really have a whole lot to say, except the whole intent is just to make the signage look nicer than what it does now. So as far as the long strip building, we're taking down these like panel signs that are all along the front, and we're actually reducing the current sign area that's up there, and it should make it look nicer. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Are there any questions for the applicant? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring it back up here for discussion and/or a motion, please.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Peel.
if there are no discussions, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I move that Master Alternative Sign Plan ASP 06186437 be, with the 3 conditions, be approved.
I'll second it.
Second from Ms. Fairbanks. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That master sign plan has been approved. Move to item number 6, a preliminary plat for Calamar Senior Living. And we're back to Mr. Wright.
All right, thank you, Chairman Billups and Commissioners. Before you this evening is bring it up here for you, is a request for preliminary plat for Calamar First Plat. This is a 1-lot subdivision on approximately 7.77 acres, which is located south of Northeast Coronado Drive, immediately east of Adams Point Golf Course. The preliminary plat here, there was an approved development concept plan for the development of a 3-story, 132-unit apartment building intended to be used for independent senior living. That was approved. A for sale only final plat was approved by the City Council in October 2017, and that was recorded at Jackson County in March 2018. And that allowed the 7.77 acre site to be split off from the original 20-acre parcel, that's the larger parcel here. The dedication of an off-site sanitary sewer easement must be approved by the City Council and recorded prior to the permitting of the extension of the sanitary sewer easement. That is shown in this area off-site, coming up from an existing sewer main that runs along the south portion of that property back towards the golf course property. In addition to that extension must be approved prior to the extension must be completed prior to the approval of the final plat. A limits of no access has been shown along Northeast Coronado Drive. A landscape easement will also accompany that, since there is a limits of no access. Stormwater detention easements and all other utility easements will also be dedicated, labeled, and dedicated, or delineated, labeled, and dedicated on the final plat. The final plat must be approved and recorded before the issuance of any building permits for the site, and staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat, subject to the 7 conditions in the staff report. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff?
Mr. Wright, or I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peel.
Mr. Wright, the current zoning that is shown now, is that going to change?
This was rezoned last fall to MF18, and it's in the Adams Area Parkway overlay, so the high-density residential is fine for what's approved, and the plan development concept plan also is fine for what's approved.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
And Mr. Wright, will we also be seeing a site plan design review for this project, and do we have a timeline on that?
Yes, that is the last set of applications would be a PD final plan and site plan design review, as well as the final plat. The applicant is here, so they may be able to speak a little bit more to their anticipated timeline with this.
It's not something that you already have in the works?
We have not received the application yet.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation or comments?
I'm Jerry Hill. My address is 15 Northwest 114th Court, Kansas City, Missouri, with Calamar. I won't take time to talk about the whole project because we did that when we were here last fall. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We're in the process of putting together the plan and probably will be submitted later this month.
Okay.
Just as an update, since we were here last, we have concluded all the environmental studies of the property, the geotech, 3 different demographic studies, and we purchased the property. And so our hope is to get the plan submitted, work through the process to be able to start construction this fall. So,
Any questions for
happy
the
to answer any
applicant?
questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Peel.
Mr. Hill, are there any ideas of purchasing the property east for expansion of the Calamar living?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm glad to see we're moving forward on this project. I was excited about it last fall, and I'm glad to see it.
We're excited about it too.
Glad to see it finally coming to the next step.
Thank you.
So, that being said, I'll bring it back up here for discussion. Any motions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Duhon.
hearing no comments, I make a motion that we approve case number PP-12-17-6167 with the 7 staff recommendations.
I'll second it.
A second from Ms. Fairbanks. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The preliminary plat has been approved. And that leads us to other business. Mr. Mallon?
Yes, currently we have 3 cases to be heard at the July 23rd Planning Commission meeting. We have a vacation of a right-of-way, a rezoning for an auto repair and sales business, and a PD concept plan for Blue Springs South High School addition. Also, I believe that evening it will be public officials liability training, Karen, as well as a group photo. So please plan to attend if you can for Karen so that we can get that picture done, as I'm sure she would love to have that done.
And all dressed appropriately.
And that is all that we have.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Yes, Mr.
I might just mention that we also, Thursday evening, we have an area plan for the S2 area, which covers everything in the Blue Springs growth area south of Moreland School Road and east of Adamsbury Parkway and Stroud Road. So I think Karen's been getting a number of RSVPs, so that'll be held at Timothy Lutheran School on Wyatt Road, beginning at 6 and wrapping up at 7:30.
Okay.
And when was it, Mr. Wright?
This Thursday, July 12th.
Okay.
Anything else from counter up here? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Peel, Ms. Fairbanks, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.